Hi Russ, it's Glenn Hughes here from Googie Modern. I'm going to show you a couple little things about your table here since you're finishing it yourself. I promised you that I'd give you some tips. First, I'll just show you quickly how to assemble it. This is one of your plates here, and you'll notice that on the inside of each slot, there's a letter, A, B, C, D, E for this one, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, E, F, G, H. The other, I don't even have my alphabet straight. And then there are corresponding letters on the inside. So this is letter C, and we'll find the C slot. Put that in like that. Then we have the B slot, the B leg. We have the A slot, the A leg. And finally the D slot and the G leg. There you go. All goes together just like that. And then the screws go in, and the legs, since they're custom made, handmade, they're made, tailor-made for each slot, so they have to go in the particular slot. Let's take the screw, tighten it all the way down. Don't over tighten it, just tighten it just enough. And there you go. I'm not gonna put you through making me put all four legs in, but that's what you'll do. That's pretty self-explanatory, pretty easy. If you need to take it apart, I'm going to show you a quick little tip here. Let's take that screw back out. Some of the legs should come right out just like that, but some of them might be a little tight because I try to make the tolerances as tight as possible. And if that happens, what you do is you hold it like this and put a thumb on each side and pull the leg straight out. This is short grain here, and here. And you don't want to break that. It's a little bit fragile until you get it screwed together. So when it's not screwed together, you don't want to angle it and crack that. So put the thumb on each side like this. Just slide the leg out. There you go. Now sometimes if you take that apart, you're going to end up with some scratches on the inside of your leg. And you may end up with some scratches on the plate here and here where the leg attached. You won't see it when you put it back together, but if you want to get those scratches out, there's a few things I've included in your kit, and we're going to talk about that now since you're going to be finishing this yourself, and I told you I'd give you some advice for that. So in your kit is a bunch of stuff here, and I've included some 220 sandpaper that you can just give that a light sanding with the grain if you get some scratches on there before you put the finish on. Quick little tip about this sandpaper. You'll notice how I have it folded up and how it's ripped. That's because you can use all four sides of the sandpaper without the sanding surfaces ever touching each other, and that keeps the sandpaper sharp. That's just a little wood finishing tip. So I'm going to give you some 220 sandpaper. I'm going to give you a pad of 4/0 steel wool. We'll talk about that in a minute. I told you I'd also give you some samples of the exact same wood that this came from. So these are actually cut-offs from these boards, so it's the exact same wood. And you can use these to experiment with. And finally, I gave you this big piece of scrap wood, and I'm going to show you in a minute or two what that's for. Okay, and you got your 4 screws for each table. All you'll need is the screwdriver. I haven't included that. Let's talk about finish a little bit. You're going to stain this first. I would highly suggest you stain it and then put a finish on it. And so you're going to take your stain, you'll probably buy a couple different stains, put a sample of each stain that you buy on the board and compare it with that piece that you're ordering or that you've already ordered. When you get the color that looks almost the same, then I would highly suggest you put clear polyurethane or even clear lacquer over top of it. The lacquer is called DEP, it's D-E-P. I'm going to put a link to everything I'm talking about in the description of this video on YouTube. So for instance, let's talk about the polyurethane. This is one that you could use, polyacrylic. This is a clear gloss. It's made by Minwax. You can get this at Home Depot. You can probably get it at Lowe's, Ace Hardware, any place like that. But this is clear. It won't color your wood. So once you get your stain to match, you can put this on it and it shouldn't color it, at least not too much. It's very, very clear. I pulled these out because you should not use this. This is called poly shades, and this is acrylic finish, polyurethane, and stain in one. But this stuff is very hard to control, and it leaves kind of a film on your wood, and the natural grain of the walnut is just not going to come through. So avoid this stuff, avoid the poly shades, use just the polyacrylic or the lacquer. Finally, this is the stain that I normally use when I have to stain something. I can't remember if I got this at Ace or at True Value in Albuquerque. They're right across the street from each other. But it's called Verathayne wood stain. It dries really super quickly. You paint it on, and just in a few minutes later, rub off the residue. And you can put a finish over this fairly quickly. Of course, you can also use Minwax stains. This is the polish shade, but Minwax is the brand, and that's really easy to find. So get yourself a couple small cans like this, work on the samples until you get it right. And then I'm going to I've also included in here a small sample of Fireball Cinnamon Whiskey. Actually, that's not what that is at all. That is a little bit of Waterlox, and that is the tongue oil-based finish that we use in our shop here. I'm just going to give you a small sample of that because it's pretty expensive, and if you're not, and it does darken the wood a lot, so you're probably not going to use this if you really want to match that other piece of furniture. But I will put a link to this. We buy it on Amazon, so if you want to try a sample of this on one of your pieces of wood and you like it, then you can go ahead and buy this on Amazon. I will tell you that this will take about 6 coats of finish. I'd put a minimum 6 coats on there. And now I'm going to give you a few tips on finishing. So for your plate here, I would do the bottom first, do the bottom and the edges first, and either let that dry or let it dry while you do the legs second. And then you can flip that over and set it up on something. You know what's really nice is like Dixie cups or something like that. Set it up on something, keep it off the table, and then do the top surface. But you'll be able to figure that out yourself. But for the legs, I'm going to show you something on the legs. And this is a little tip on the way that we finish things here at Googie Modern. That's what this board is right here. So what you do is you take this board and take your legs and line them up on the board like this. So the only surface that is put a newspaper down, obviously. The only surface that is contacted is this very corner of this leg down here. So what I will normally do is I'll take a leg and I'll hold it right here. And I'll take my finish with a cloth. I always use a cloth for finish, don't use a brush. And I put my finish on like this. I get the whole surface of the leg. I get the whole thing. And then I set it on my board like this, hold it here, and then get that piece where your hand was. And you can do all 4 legs like that, and it will take multiple coats. But I'm going to include all of this stuff in here. I'm including the steel wool and the sandpaper because no matter what finish you use, at some point after maybe the second coat, you're going to want to take the sandpaper and do a light sanding over the whole thing. You'll see that it feels a little bit rough even if you put polyurethane on it. And then before your final coat, take your 4/0 steel wool, do the whole thing with steel wool. Make sure you wipe it down really well because it'll leave steel fibers on here, but wipe the whole thing down. You get it super smooth. Do your final coat with a cloth and you're gonna have a nice finished surface. So I hope you like the tables. I would love it if you could post an honest review and maybe some photos of them when they're done. And don't hesitate to reach out to us if you have any questions. I love making these for you, and I'm really super excited to see how they turn out. Thanks.